Hello, YouTube. This is Flaming Hito, and I'm here with Deviant. You'll know him if you post in the Something Awful thread, or if you were in that one Board Game Geek thread where you really went off on on the Octagon guys. And
That
we're just talking about some Netrunner stuff, especially because Worlds just ended, and a Goon won Worlds. I'm pretty sure Goon won Nationals too. We're just the best. We thought we'd start taking a look at his deck lists. Let's start on the corpse side with his Engineering the Future deck.
I'm looking at this. Engineering the future has always been very popular, and obviously this is no exception. And
Hmm.
again, I mentioned this in the thread. It might be a regional thing. I see a lot of engineering the future. It's one of my favorites as well.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'm interested. It looks like he did some interesting picks here, though. It's at its core, a fast advanced deck.
Hmm.
I don't know. What's your take on it, though?
I think the things that really surprise me are the one-off Victor 2-0. That's kind of an interesting move. You can see here kind of his idea with Bioroids. He put the Elis in, which are a pretty safe bet because they're a perfect. We're not gonna hard stop you with these Elis because I'm fast advance. I don't need to hard stop you. I just need to make it inefficient. Your
Yeah,
aggression.
anytime you spend clicking past Eli is time you spend not doing something else.
Right. And so that's a very fast advance oriented pick when you don't actually need to have that secure remote.
Yeah,
Um,
you can't trust him by himself in anything that's mission critical.
Right. And I just kind of like the peppering of other bioroids. I think definitely one of ice really isn't used quite enough.
That's something I do very heavily. I don't like to run three of anything because Atman is a thing. I don't like to run duplicates and now you've got Atman and also with the advent of second thoughts you've got what is that card called copycat. So having multiples in different servers is a vulnerability.
Yep, I really like the pop-up window. I think pop-up window is one of the five best pieces of ice. Actually, of my top five ice list, he has like three of them. He has the rototurret at three. I'm surprised to see rototurret at three.
I again this might be a regional thing, but I have issues with Roto Turret. Give me one sec. Sorry, my audio is going a little goofy. Sound
Sure.
Okay, as I was saying, around here people tend to run Crypsis heavily, even now. So those zero strength ice tend to fall apart earlier than they might in any other scenario.
Hmm. Oh, let me pull. I don't know if these will be readable, but I'll put the deck list up for people to play along. That's probably
Yeah,
helpful. Um,
get it together.
and other than that, the green level clearances too. Just I kind of like seeing those. I
Some
think.
people some people like that one. I come and go on it. It's obviously I just occasionally I like Beanstalk better sometimes. Depends what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have the influence. I really
Yes,
like
that's
the NBN splashes here. The Howards and the pop-ups and the one toll booth. I think all really.
we talked about this before in the video that didn't end up going anywhere because of the audio issues. But
Yeah.
I said it then. I'll say it now. I'll say it tomorrow, and I'll say it the day after that. Jackson Howard is the way in the loud.
I
He
don't
might
think anyone's gonna.
no exactly. It's not a point anybody's going to argue with.
No.
Looks unpopular opinions, of which I have many. That is not one of them.
Yeah. Let's look at this Andromeda deck here. It's
One more thing before we go any further, if you don't
sure,
mind. Sorry to cut you off there.
no problem.
What do you think? What's the reasoning behind Director Haas' pet project? Do you think?
I mean, Director Haas's pet project is just a really good way to daisy chain, especially with Adonis campaign. Director Haas is really good synergy with Adonis campaign
That's fair. Because I
because
used to play a deck a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
because like I said, his ice spread is very much a fast advance oriented where he can't hold the remote at all. He just wants to make the runs expensive and prohibitive because he doesn't need that full protection for any agendas. And so what Director Haas has let you do is because Adonis is the perfect for that. They got to run through it all and then pay that three, or
Right,
you
right.
get ridiculous money. And what Director Haas let him do is let him pop off an Adonis again, or bring back a Jackson Howard, and then
Okay,
he
that
can
makes
just
sense.
put in a couple of like if you ice it with like a pop up in an Eli or something, like
Yeah,
you know.
I can see that. I think because when I my old HP Fast Advanced deck, the one I had to use Director Haas very heavily. I still think I'm the only one person in the world who plays that card as well. But more on that later.
Hmm.
I used two Gila hands instead. But other than that, it was exactly the same agendas because they're just that set of agendas is just so good. I mean,
Yep.
you've got beta test, which if the math is in your favor, you can run it. You've got an efficiency committee, which of course plays nice with all the different advancement toys. Vitruvius, which might as well be blank in this scenario.
Yep. Yeah,
I appreciate having the money making of archaeology more than anything else.
yeah. The Andromeda deck, there's not as much to say. It's running a hostage economy, which I like. I've been as soon as I saw hostage, I was kind of excited about that idea to throw in the one contacts and only one Katie, and I
I,
actually
I,
think
yeah,
Scrubber.
I haven't seen this one as closely, and I know I'm familiar with hostage, but I'm not. How does this operate? What is he doing here?
Well, the idea is that by running your hostages, you can save influence by running only one contacts, and then as soon as you draw a hostage, you get your contacts, and you only need to run one Katie for the same reason.
Okay, so he's using a hostage to pick up. Let's see.
A John
Ah,
Massonoria Katie and a contacts,
okay.
and it just lowers how many you need to put in your decks, which gives you
Yeah,
free space.
that's neat because yeah, those one ofs can be really disastrous if you don't find it. But yeah, if you've got two
Hmm.
hostages, I suppose the hostages will find whichever ones you don't draw into.
Yep, and
So that makes sense.
yeah, I really like that. I think Scrubber should really be included in Hostage, although people aren't really playing Jinteki much any. Like there was that spike because of what was it, the Genkon Jinteki, and now Jinteki's kind of fallen back down again in popularity.
Yeah, they come and go. They're very popular here, at
Yeah,
least in my
and
area.
against like a Jinteki or the really lateral HBs, like Scrubber is invaluable against those decks that are running pop-ups and contracts and trying to get you to just run remotes over and over.
Yeah, I think you might see Scrubber get some play as a result of the fact that people are now going with the hard to trash asset economy, your private contracts, your
Hmm.
market accounts, to a lesser extent your director Haas,
Yep.
anything that has that magical five trash cost. Which without a Scrubber, it's really only going to be easy for Wizard, and nobody really seriously plays Wizard around here anyway.
Yep. There's not even too much to say about the rest of the deck. It's just kind of that criminal deck that's been around forever. The hostage economy is a neat sort of twist on it. Other than that, I'd say it's pretty much just your average criminal aggression.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was thinking about this on the way home because I've got a Shaper deck I've been playing around with in an attempt to make Monolith good, and I don't think it can be done yet. That being said, I was playing it, I was playing it really badly because I was used to playing these very aggressive criminal decks, and it kind of occurred to me that that deck was more of a scalpel, whereas the criminal deck is something more of a hammer, and I really like the way that works out.
Yep. So I think basically the coolest thing to note here is just that by using that hostage economy and thinning out his economy, look what he got to put in a second R&D interface. He got to put in a second corroder for some redundancy. And that's when you think about it, that's the card slot and influence of two contacts
Yeah,
that he
that's true.
got to switch for a second R&DI and a second corroder, and that's nothing to sneeze at.
No, yeah, because he's okay.
He was brave enough to run two Plascrit and not three.
I don't see. I only normally run two. What I've been finding the smarter players will do is if they have Plascrete out and they eat a Scorch and by the corporation attempting to cut through it,
Mhm.
they'll just take the cards out of their hand and leave a couple maybe one or two tokens on Plascrete depending on. I did that during the plugged in tour and it worked out to great effect. So at the end of the game, I had two Plascretes, one of which was half full. So, but he couldn't pick up enough extra stuff to close the deal.
Yep. So once again, let's just say congrats to Jens and Goon Power, right?
They, very. I know. I was when I heard it was an Andromeda deck and an HB deck, I was very cynical because like maybe they're very popular around here. Well, I see a lot of
Yeah.
them.
What are you gonna do? I think when Grendel's gonna come out though, that's gonna be the deck to beat, man.
Yeah, especially with all the new cards that are hitting, which we can get to that if you want to talk about the second thought stuff.
I can
A lot of those
talk about
cards
that.
seem purpose built for Grendel.
And even without, I think I've done this rant a lot, but I haven't done it on camera, so I'm gonna do it again.
Here we
I
go.
think bad publicity. I think people generally overestimate how bad it is
Hmm.
because everyone's first experience with bad publicity is hostile takeover, right? That's been like 95% of bad publicity that's gotten in games, hostile takeover. And the thing about hostile takeover is you want to do it like turn 2 or 3 because that's when those credits are the most useful and you threaten Archer as soon as you've got it scored and you want that Archer control.
Yeah.
And so because of that, the bad publicity on hostile takeover is a really big deal. But bad publicity gets less and less relevant depending on other factors like Grims. I I had the privilege. I was arguing for Grim ever since it came out, and finally, I think people are starting to come around to
Yeah,
it.
I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah. And that
Um,
Grimm's is like virtually, basically doesn't really matter the bad publicity. It means you can't use it as like a speed bump mid game or something. But
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The reason the bipublicity got so heavily overestimated is because of the hostile takeovers. They get scored very early. They get scored early on in the game, and then the longer you have the bad publicity, the more mileage they're going to get out of it.
yeah, whereas
So
Grim is late game, and you've just presumably trashed a breaker, which means maybe they can't even spend money.
yeah, because if it's not going to trash a breaker, there's no reason to res it unless they're in a position where it's going to be expensive for them.
But something I actually think that Grendel's bad publicity is going to be less bad than hostile takeovers, even though
Hmm.
you start with it guaranteed. Because the difference is, if you put in like 3 Elizabeth Mills
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
normal
Grendel.
Wayland deck, you need to draw takeover, score the takeover, and play the Mills. That's like a 2 card combo. You have to draw them in the right order. And that's something you got to think about in deck building. Whereas with Grendel, you can just thunk, play Elizabeth Mills first action, and you're good.
Yeah, I think Grendel's going to be the new identity for Tag and Bag because of that cash.
Yeah.
The tag and bag archetype is either about waiting for the runner to make a mistake and float a tag, or just outrunning him monetarily and then just making it happen.
Yep. See, I
And,
don't.
and
I actually think the biggest thing for it is just going to be trying to get money and then just getting a remote you can't run. Like I see them using their influence on like Ash or Herrings.
well,
Maybe they
they only get a few influence though,
they
right?
get I think 10.
Or is it 10? Okay,
Yeah, I mean that's enough for 3 Ash and 3 Herrings.
that's true. What I was thinking would be done with that would be again would be this typical scorch earth combo, the sea source and scorch.
Yeah.
But because I mean, in terms of money, you're starting out ahead.
Hmm.
Then with these newer cards, if you get off one
Restructure.
no yes, but profiteering. Profiteer for another free 15 credits. You're giving him 3 bad publicity, but if that 15 credits is what you needed to close the deal,
Yep.
doubly so because if he has 3 bad publicity, he's probably going to run.
Yeah, and then off the grid, I mean Grendel, you can just put all your biggest ice on HQ and then don't even ice your remote.
See, I don't know if I like off the grid. I keep coming and going on it. I feel like people there's already enough compelling reasons to hit HQ.
Hmm.
It's going to happen anyway.
I think it's a very niche card for sure. Because that 6 cost is so much to res it.
I mean,
But
what I could see having done, and I don't think it would fit in Grendel, would be off the grid and River Valley, which is a card that's not getting any play. So suddenly you've got it's going to take 2 clicks to get into HQ and take care of the problem. And then
yeah,
they buy an extra turn or two to take care of something. But they're expensive cards. River Valley and off the grid are both 6 to res, so you're
hmm,
paying 12 for a lot of.
right. And while I do think it's generally going to be pretty like I see Grendel, you get restructuring a hedge fund and you start with 14 and just put 2 big pieces of ice on HQ, and then you can start rushing through agendas without having to ice your remote.
Right.
But then it's definitely a big gamble because if they tinker inside job in once, then you're. I don't know if that'll be good, but I definitely think, like, while I do agree the Scorched Earth will be one strong thing to do with Grendel, I think the game has been so focused on fast advance, people don't really think about starting the game by getting a server the runner can't get into and scoring an agenda. Like
I
the.
think the I think the reason for that is prior to some of these newer cards coming out, some of the ice to really make an unassailable fort didn't exist.
Right.
Some of the ice that's come out recently is the meanest stuff I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Just today I was playing a game and I managed to I ran a beta test and got Wotan out of that, and that was the other guy did not like to see that happen. He was not happy, and that thing kept him out the whole game.
Yeah, it's definitely. Swordsman is another one.
Yeah,
Being
so
able to
I
stop
mean,
AIs.
at least around here, AI is going out of fashion, and I'm not sure if that's in anticipation of a swordsman or if it's just because.
Yeah, and so I think that is what people are fundamentally missing with Grendel. Is they're thinking of it as like, oh, wow, you only get 5 credits, you gotta take a bad pub. That's not worth it because they're trying to like find a cash value of bad pub or something silly. Uh oh, my
Well,
keyboard.
everybody tends to approach this in that fashion. Um,
And I think what people really need to think about it is it's a like a turn faster for trying to rush an agenda. And if you
Right.
rush out a government contracts or something, or
Well, this got touched on in the essay thread today, and I've mentioned it before. I don't feel like you can analyze the game's efficiency in terms of clicks or
mm,
compare things to Opus. You really have to look at the tempo of a game.
yep,
What's gonna cause the other person to set the other person back in terms of speed, or what's gonna advance your ability to do things.
one other thing I wanted to note about Wotan, this is just kind of random trivia that is cool. It's the first Bioroid. It turns out that a click to break isn't a rule of Bioroids. All Bioroid, I guess, needs to imply is an alternate way to deal with the subroutines.
Yeah. Well,
So,
the reason for that, well, the reason there from a thematic perspective, I don't know how familiar you are with the Android lore, is that Bioroids are artificially intelligent, so they can be reasoned with, or so even though they're connected, they're ice, but you can talk your way past one. The whole point was it was always kind of either there's a one of the data packs, I forget which one, has a, I think it's the one that Kit came in. I don't know if you remember which one that one is. It's basically a little excerpt from a story of her reasoning with a Bioroid to get past it.
yep. Kit was just the big box creation and control.
Oh yeah, it was that one. Thank you,
Mhm.
thank you. I don't know where my brain went there.
But what's really cool about Wotan is I think this was we were discussing right the ice cheating archetype deck where you
Hmm.
would run like next and you would splash three oversights and you would have Bioroid efficiency and you would
I,
just get giant ice you would never pay for.
that is why Wotan has to be unique. If Wotan were not unique, that would be the only deck you would see.
Right, because the cool thing about Wotan is before him, Heimdall was the only one that was immune to E3. Like, or
In
no,
what? Yeah, in what way is he immune to E3? I'm confused.
that you couldn't break all of his. Oh no,
No, because he's got two. He's got the two clicks, and then
yeah,
you can pay for the other one.
yeah. I'm sorry. What I meant is that before him, Heimdall is the only one without E3 that you can't click. Oh, I guess Giannis and Heimdall are the two that without
Yeah,
E3.
yeah, different. Yeah, because Heimdall is the four routines, and you have to run, and then
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, that was it. Sorry.
yeah.
And maybe was Ichi does Ichi 2 have 3 too?
He's all the 2.0 Bioroids have that. They have three subroutines, I believe,
Okay.
and the two click for two
No,
routines.
Victor has 2. I'm almost certain.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Maybe, yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule then, obviously, but
Yeah.
I kind of see what you're getting
But
at.
the cool thing is that yeah, Wotan is I'm sorry, yeah, the first one who's immune to E3 because even if you like pay the 2 creds, you don't break the sub
Right. It's
fires
it's
and then
it's it,
you
yeah. It's an alternate cost
ignore and the run.
rather than
And so you now finally have a Bioroid who's immune to E3, and he joins the rank of Giannis, Heimdall 2, and I think Ichi 2, where you need E3 or you can't get them, which makes this is a big buff to Bioroid efficiency research.
definitely.
And I think those next design decks might see a lot more power now. I mean, Wotan's kind of like Giannis. I don't really want to pay that money ever in my life.
See. Unlike Yanis, I think the 14 for Wotan is a great spend of money. Like he's appropriately costed. And if I need to keep somebody out, I am happy to pay that cost because nobody wants to see that thing flip over. I believe the cheapest breaker to break it with, excluding like Fem, it costs him 12 credits. It's eight to boost with Corroder and then 4 to break.
Yeah, it's pretty
I mean,
nuts. That's for sure.
yeah, it is just not a thing you want to see at the table.
I actually think battering ram might come back into fashion now, because the one thing about these big fuck off biorite efficiency decks we're talking about is that barriers tends to be their shining stars, like the best ones,
Yeah,
especially because you have fairy to deal with Giannis and Ig. Um, and so I think one of the biggest problems might just be that your 2 big pieces of ice both happen to be barriers, and then you can use like keeping the strength to smack
yep,
it down. Well, so I guess snowball too. No, because snowball only gets the 1
yeah.
buff. That's not
Snowball's
really
not
worth it.
as
Yeah.
not as efficient.
So I think we might be seeing more battering rams.
It's possible. It's still very expensive to cut through them.
Right, but then at least the big benefit is if you have 2 of them, then you buff it up once and you
Right.
get the other one almost for free. Looking at the stuff, Scheherazade. I mean,
I played a game with Scheherazade today, and it's neat. It's neat. It's a little gimmicky. Um,
yeah, because the problem is you don't want to like use it just normally because then you're so fragile to trash a program. So it's
Well,
for
yeah,
stuff you're
it's
scooting
an eggs and
around.
basket type of thing. The thing I got mileage out of it was playing Kate. All those four cost breakers, Gordian Blade, Snowball, to a lesser extent. Kuroda's not four cost, but even if you she was actually installing programs with along with modded. I was installing programs at a net plus one. You know, I replaced a Gordian Blade with another one just to get it out of my hand, which I made some bad choices in that game, but because I was playing a new deck. But the point is, you got some mileage out of it.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly. Hard at work. This has been getting a lot of flack because it's not a very good card.
I can't think. I The thing anytime you see a card that is not very good, and this one is appears to be not very good,
Hmm.
they either have something coming to go with it, or they have some imagined purpose or something that
Or something they were really scared of. I think that's what happened with Salvage. That they were really scared about some sort of advanceable tag storm.
that
Um,
could be. That
I
could be.
actually think that's the same reason why Muckraker sucks so bad. I think that's the same thing where they're really worried about a lot of early tags.
That's possible. I don't understand what purpose they have in mind for hard at work, or if they have something else that'll go with it. You could maybe pair it up with Joshi B.
My thing about Hard at Work is this is two things. I'm not saying it's a good card. It's just the 2 points to make for it. One comes from Scud actually on Board Game Geek. He pointed out against Sundew. The thing
Which one is
is,
Sundu? Refresh my
Sundew
memory.
is that Jinteki asset where Jinteki gets 2 creds if your first click that you spend isn't running on Sundew.
Oh yeah.
But
Okay,
then this will let you get 2 more creds before you have to run the Sundew
that's
because it
right.
will. And
Okay.
similarly, I think what could make it really useful is something kind of like Darwin, where you need to spend credits at the start of your turn, because it's fairly expensive, but it is the only way you can guarantee you're starting your turn with credits.
There is
If
that.
Corp gets more effects that are like closed accounts, or something like ways to make you lose money, then Hard at Work will be the only way you can guarantee you're starting your turn with credits. And that might matter if you've got like a really
That's
powerful breaker, but you've got to trash it if you don't spend money.
that seems yeah. Currently, that seems really situational, but I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of, you mentioned Sundew. That's from the challenge deck, correct? Currently, it's not out.
Yeah, it's one of the Jinteki ones coming probably in either a data pack or the we're probably getting a Jinteki big box because there's been just too many Jinteki cards in the deck.
Yeah. The other thing that is coming that came out of that deck, since we already mentioned the Grendel deck, touch on that one for a minute. And it's one of my new it's probably my new favorite card. Just if nothing else, because it's got the right mix of theme and being a good card is Shock. I think Shock is amazing, and every time I see somebody get damaged by it, I was heard to yell the same phrase: "The stove is hot. Stop that." I love the fact that it's a trap that fires from the archives. I love the fact that there's just nothing that can be done about it. It exists, and
Yeah.
you have to play around it.
Shock, what I really like about it is it's a really smart counter to Desperado Data Sucker that isn't something really like a hard counter. It just incidentally because people are like, hey, you're gonna take guaranteed damage you run on archives. It's like, well, how often are you gonna give a shit that you can't access archives? You know,
Yeah,
like it's only because you're Desperado Data Sucker that's a huge deal against you, and that's a really good way to nerf a really good deck. I think.
yeah. And with J How being a thing, you can either discard them manually to get them in there to keep archives safe, or you can hang on to them, in HQ if you want. They're as a low budget snare.
Hmm.
And then of course in your deck they're always painful. You know.
Yeah, it's Shock's pretty cool. I got nothing against Shock.
That's I love the concept. I think it's fantastic, and when it comes out, I'll probably run three of them. It's also one influence, I believe, so it's easily splashable.
Yep.
It's again, that's I look at it as a low budget snare.
A lot of people. Let's talk about Eureka. Eureka. A lot of people got strong opinions on Eureka.
Well, about the card or about the art, because people have been arguing about both.
Oh man, I'm gonna forgive me, people viewing, while my head's gonna be to the side. I'm gonna go get the Eureka art available for us. I'm gonna go quick, put it in our cast here. But what
While
do
you're
you,
looking while you're looking at that, you make a great point. I'm never sure where I'm supposed to be looking on these things. Like I'm kind of looking at Eureka on the Skype because I'm talking to you, but I'm looking away from the camera.
what
I don't
I've
know.
done is I just put your face as close to the camera as I could, and I'm looking at your face, but you're close to the camera.
Fair enough.
All right, let me go.
I always feel like a goof when I'm just looking at the camera.
Yep.
Hello, internet.
So Eureka is like you can save like 7 credits, but you got to spend a second click for it, and you have to like, it has to have been something that costed 10 to
Yeah.
save all 7, and then
The,
doesn't.
the deck I'm playing around with, the one I mentioned before, is Motivation, Eureka, Monolith.
I think a lot of people want that to work. I put it up now.
I cannot make it work yet. It's not there. I mean, I got a lot of comedy draws today, but it's just not there. Test run synergizes with it very nicely as well because you can. I mean, one of the biggest problems I have with that deck is I like to run Fem as my Sentry Breaker. Fem is expensive. You can test run Fem, put it back on top of the deck, and then boop, out it comes for
Here's
free.
honestly my biggest problem with Eureka is I have an exile deck. I might, now that like plugged in is over, I'm probably gonna start just goofing off, so I might revisit this. I had an exile deck. It's kind of like that Dirty Hands deck that got kind of popular a while back, but it's just basically like a lot of reshuffling. Like I use Omni Drives and Dino, and I just move stuff around. Like Shaper can already cheat stuff. I just test run Scavenge is really good combo.
Yeah, I really think that Eureka was intended to go with Monolith. That is the purpose, I believe.
Yeah, because that's the only time that you can't cheat. Because you want to put in expensive programs and resources, and I
But
think
there's the problem is currently no way to get Monolith to the top of your deck reliably, which I believe is what motivation is for to keep to know because you have to know it's there.
yeah, I think there's gonna be in like maybe a year there'll be so many expensive cards that someone creates a weird Eureka combo deck.
There's also that 13 cost console that's coming out. Blackguard. Is that
Oh
what it's
yeah,
called? That'll be another one.
I really hope Blackguard ends up being stinky because if it is good, it's gonna be so just annoying.
I forget the exact text on it. I can only pull it up.
It's the one where if you expose a card, you can force Corp to res it.
That's right. That's right.
So
I hope that's
it
good.
just means the Corp has to only play stuff they can res right now, and it's just kind of.
But how many expose effects are there in the game? There's infiltration, satellite uplink, and Luminary Codecracker.
And Raymond Flint is coming.
Oh, he's got. Which one is that one? Refresh my memory.
He's the you get an access on HQ every time the corp gets a bad pub, which also has the cool side effect of if you have HQ interface. Someone pointed out that it accesses an access, so you can
Let me look at it.
yeah.
Raymond Flint, Raymond Flint, Raymond Flint, Raymond Flint. There he is. Wow, that's very good.
Yeah, so he
Um,
works really well with the HQ interface.
Also, Nerve Agent, right?
Yeah, I think Nerve Agent too. Yeah,
I think
and
Nerve Agent and HQ Interface should have the same wording.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. I think it does work with both. And
Right. In order for Raymond Flint to be viable, though, you're gonna need to there's gonna need to be ways to force bad publicity out of the corporation.
right, but the thing is, like completely ancillary to that, you can trash him for an expose.
That's
And
fair.
so what that does for Blackguard is it gives you paid speed exposing, which can be a real pain for the corp.
Yeah, it's also you at that point you've got a jury rigged forgery activation orders.
Right, but it's one you can fire in the middle of the run, which is what's really
Right,
sick.
right. Yeah.
Um, okay, I want to talk about Record Reconstructor because I want to go. This is a theory I've had for a while. Because Fisk won, and I was in the Fisk camp. I know you were collective, so I'm sorry.
I can talk about that at great length, which I'm sure which we'll come back to that.
But I think this is half of a cool combo coming up for Fisk, the Record Reconstructor. That's
Okay.
one where you can run archives and just throw a crappy card back in their hand.
Right. Well, back
And
on top of the deck.
oh yeah, on top of the deck. And I think what Fisk really needs is a card. It'd probably gonna end up being a resource, just how FFG parcels out the effects. A
Right.
resource that makes the corp discards random. You combine that with Record Reconstructor, and suddenly Fisk becomes a lot stronger. Because that's what makes him kind of weak. Is that
I think an effect that made the corp discards random would be too good for not the corp. That would be too much of a disaster. It's because it's too easy to lose an agenda, and then suddenly there. I mean, you've got the as it stands, against the criminal, the first thing you ice is HQ. Against I think it would kind of create a state where the first thing you ice is the archives, no matter what. Because if you're gonna lose something randomly there, you better you got to deal with it sooner rather than later.
right? But I think kind of the key of it is that without like the Fisk would be a necessary part of it, and it wouldn't be generally as dangerous because the corp can just manage their hand. Although
Or having that effect exist would make Jackson Howard a mandatory 3-0 for all decks.
well, and there's always research
It's
station.
Sorry,
There's always Research Station too. People forget
which
about
one?
Research Station core.
You lagged there, so I was
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna seriously play Research Station. That's
I
what do you
actually found the one deck why it's actually really good, and I was kind of waiting there. It's for advanceable ice stall decks.
Okay,
Be-
interesting.
because the idea is that so if you're advanceable ice, like my HQ ice is my 23 strength ice wall, and my my R&D ice is my 17 strength Hadrian's. I don't want
Right.
to make a remote. I'm using just like Howard, Trick of Light, and Archived Memories. That's the only way I'm going to score an agenda. I don't want to make a remote, which means I just want to sit and hide my agendas until I can get all that scoring off. And that's when Research Station is really useful, because the key to it is the cards need to be useful, which is true a lot, but they need to not be hitting HQ very often, and that's why it works with the advanceable ice because it costs them like 20 creds to get into your HQ once. So
I can see that then.
yeah, that's just a random tangent. It's the one time I've actually found it useful. So
The other things people they say can find for record reconstructor is like I said, to just put jump back on top of the deck, and if your opponent is playing director Haas.
oh yeah, that's definitely a funny use of it. But that's just kind of my theory that random discard some effect is going to come that makes discards random. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. Maybe if a resource is too strong, there might just end up being an event that says something like the corp has to discard down to 3 cards randomly or something.
Right. Maybe yeah, that might be better. That might be
But
more realistic.
regardless, I think that is part of the key for Fisk. Because right now, Fisk is really good at, clogging and pressure. And the problem ultimately is that since the Corp can discard down to 5, that if you give them cards they don't want, they just discard them. So you can't make them lose good cards by giving them crappy cards. And I think anything that gives Fisk that ability, that will suddenly make him
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
more
Currently,
useful.
all he's really good at is or all record reconstructor is good for is clogging up the deck,
Hmm.
which is interesting on its own right. But
Yep. Shipment
you're
from
at that point
Sans.
you're essentially taking away the corporation's turn draw for turn.
Yeah, shipment from Sansan is I don't know. I think it's anticipating more effects like efficiency committee because it's the only time it's.
I have an efficiency committee Sansan Trick of Light deck with Haas. That was I don't know if you remember the next deck that we designed.
Yep.
I started taking more and more ice out of that to make room for fancy toys like Trick of Light and Sansan and everything. And eventually, I got down to the point I think 18 ice where it wasn't worth my time to run next design. So
Mm.
now it's an engineering the future deck.
Yep.
It's down. I'll send you the list sometime. I think I may have already.
Yeah, you did send me one version. I don't know if it's the most recent,
It hasn't changed much.
but yeah. And so I think right now shipment from Sansan, it's just really niche because like it saves you like in the general case it saves you 1 credit. Having a card that gets you 1 credit is not, you know. So
That deck never really hurts for cash though, so I might switch Shipment from Sansan out for Shipment from Kaguya.
yeah. Well, because the thing is, yeah, ultimately what you need shipment from Sansan for is because it lets you advance without
Yeah,
advancing, and so
yeah,
efficiency committee that's really
cheat
important.
through efficiency committee, which is very
Um, and until there's more effects like that, I don't see shipment from Sansan being played much.
right. I need to play this deck some more to like. I
Yeah,
played it today. I got several comedy draws and
yeah.
just
I mean,
for me.
Biotics is gonna love it, but
There's that.
no, not custom biotics. What's the cerebral imaging? Right, cerebral
Yeah,
imaging will like it.
I tried that 0 to 7 cerebral imaging deck that people
Hmm.
were playing around with, and it's neat. It's a lot of fun to play. It's not very good. It's very gimmicky.
Hmm.
And the real problem with it is that you have to be Rain Man to play it. You have to be able to remember every card, where it is, what it does, and how you can sequence all these cards to pick up 4 or 5 points in one turn.
Yeah, it's definitely requires some prep work. Muckraker, I already kind of touched on this. I think, because you know me, I just said I defend illicit ice a lot. I think bad publicity, people overestimate how bad it is. I think Muckraker is kind of bad.
Let me take a look at it because it's very popular. It's generating a lot of buzz.
Oh, friggin' Netrunner DB is having a error right now.
That's good. Um,
Oh, but if the hover over is still cached, so I'm just gonna hover over it.
where is my?
I can just read it to you too.
Sure, that's fine.
It's 5 credit Century Tracer Illicit, Strength 3. When you res, take 1 pad publicity.
That's right.
4 subs, Trace 1, give a tag. Trace 2 and
Okay.
3, give a tag. And then end the
It's a,
run if the runner is tagged.
traces are a good way to drain cash, though.
The problem is that, like, how trash a program I mentioned like works really well with bad pub. It minimizes the effect of the bad pub. A trace is the exact opposite. A trace directly like makes bad pub a lot worse.
Yeah, but this, yeah, okay, I can see that.
And I mean the first run it doesn't do it because you get bad pub crits at the start.
That's the thing, yeah.
So it can like ambush you with tags, but then like maybe Grendel wants this instead of C source as just a way to try to hit you with a guaranteed tag, and
How many influence is it?
it's three. And more
Man,
importantly, like why not just run Hunter?
yeah.
Because Hunter
There,
doesn't cost you. You have that 4 Torres to spend on the trace. I guess because you can't shake all the tags is the idea. But winning 3 traces is really hard. You need to pump enough they can't beat it every time.
so I said, the mileage I've gotten out of traces is not so much in winning them or in putting them into a situation where you can mathematically win them. It's just spending a couple credits on it here and there to try and drain the runner's funds. You can use it. He's got 13 credits. The server run is going to cost him 12. Suddenly, the math doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I guess, now that I'm saying it, I do see one kind of cool value of Muckraker, though.
What's that?
Is that, you kind of, like, if you just leave, like, the trace one up and try to spend out of it, then that can be, like, with NBN, like, I'm thinking of making news can still use it pretty well. Because
Yeah,
then that's going to be the one they pump. Like, making news can't pump all 3, but
no,
you kind of need to either break none of them or break all 3 of them. And if you get them in a situation with a scorched earth where breaking none of them would be devastating,
right?
then it does kind of force them to spend, and then 4 credits is a pretty good speed bump if you can make them spend.
Yeah,
Or more accurately, most of the time I think it's going to be 3 credits. Because you probably care about hygiene if you are breaking these tag traces. Probably
yeah.
care about your tag hygiene, which means you probably don't have tags, so then you don't need to break the last, you just need to break the first 3. Um,
That sounds right.
And then
I
another
just,
big problem with that is that if you are playing Tag Me, which is to be fair getting a lot harder and harder these days,
that's a fact. There's so many good resources now, and it's getting easier to punish people with tags for
and more
various.
people are running Psycho, which is actually the best tag punishment.
That's a fact.
Graphics.
Yeah.
And so, but if you are running Tag Me, you only need to break the 1 sub then.
Well, I think the reason Graphics is coming back is there's a little more money making to be had by the corporation now. They can have the money to fund it.
Yeah, I think a lot of reasons, and one is just that people were getting really brazenly Tag Me, and Psycho's the best punishment.
I think I hit 24 once.
Yeah, and now there's more money. Now there are decks that use efficiency committee, and they want advancement tricks that don't take influence.
Yeah.
Now you have Jackson Howard, so it's easier to run just like 1 Psycho and just get it back or whatever.
Hmm.
There's just a lot of good reasons for Psycho. Let's see the cleaners. I want to talk about the cleaners. It's that one that if you score one of them, double
Yeah,
scorch
yeah,
kills through a blast grate.
that one I know. Um, if it weren't a 5-3, I wouldn't like it, but its bonus is neat and a great little gravy on a great concept, but it's also again it's 3 points, so good, great. Even if you can't close a deal, say a scorch or anything, you've still got 3 points and you're nearly halfway done.
Yep, and I think that's another good example. Like I was saying, how I think the secret value. This can even combine our ideas. Where I think the big value of Grendel is getting able to just score an agenda conventionally in the early game.
Right.
If you're running, like you were saying, a C scorched Grendel, and you didn't get C source and scorch, there's
Yeah.
cleaners in that deck. Just use your early cash to score your cleaners, and now double scorch kills through a blast grate.
There's that. Also, I think it's a good replacement in tag and bag decks for government contracts because tag and bag decks don't tend to want government contracts. It's not quite efficient enough to, at least in my experience.
Yeah, tag and bag, because I think more importantly, tag and bag don't want to run government contracts, because if you're tag and bag, just run fracking instead. Fracking gives you money
Yeah.
way more.
For some reason, Fracken keeps not registering on my radar, and it's a great card, and I don't know why that is.
It is. I love it so
I
much.
keep forgetting it exists.
I think I'm gonna maybe branch out. Like I'm an NBN fanboy for life. I love NBN, but it's getting to be so popular. I kind of feel like just taking a break and going into Wayland because I like
Just
Waylands too.
Wayland was my first love, and I mean because the tag and bag archetype was so popular. I took one look at it and went, "Well, why'd I lose? Well, fuck you. That's why." No, it's got a very like I mentioned the scalpel and the hammer. It's definitely the hammer, and that's kind of the way I play. So
I felt bad because I just picked Criminal and NBN just because I liked the way they go, And it turns out I like inadvertently picked the strongest factions without meaning to. Like I wasn't trying to, it just happened.
And I liked I got very into HB Fast Advance because I liked NBN's Fast Advance, but it just didn't work quite right at the time.
Oh yeah, well, in core. Yeah, in core
I
NBN
like
wasn't good.
sorry.
Yeah, you're right. In core NBN wasn't that good.
Yeah, no, not yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
then, but I liked the ability to just drop stuff out of my hand without you being able to do anything about it.
Hmm. Whereas I think we need more of actual agendas on the table, which is why I'm excited for Grendel and why I played that The World Is Yours Rush that did really
Well,
well, and then Atmon came out and it stopped.
they've gone on record as saying they're not going to really do any more 3-2s because of the fast advanced type. So
Hmm.
that's good.
Yeah. I wonder if I could do that World Is Yours Rush again if I threw in Swordsman, because it's only one.
You might want wraparound when that comes out.
Oh, I definitely would want wraparound for that, but I might Swordsman too, because I really enjoyed the World Is Yours Rush and it was really strong. It had like right when Future Proof came out, I earnestly believe it was the deck to beat in Future Proof. But then immediately after that was Creation and Control, and in one expansion you get self modifying code, Ottoman, and what was the third thing that really hurt Rush decks and Creation Control? There was one more.
Um, I'm drawing a blank.
It'll come to me.
No, that's fine.
And when I say it'll come to me, I mean I'm gonna hit the card list because it'll come to me otherwise. Because yeah, Rush just got really hammered by Creation and Control, and it was because of those two. Clone Chip, that was it. Clone Chip.
Oh yeah, yeah, because you could pull anything, you grabbed anything you need. Yeah,
Yeah, because paid
there were
speed. Because the whole
there were
point. I'm sorry.
there
Go
were a
ahead.
lot of cards that caused the core set and the first few data packs had a lot of gear checks, things
Hmm.
like Chimera and self-modifying code and clone ship and retrieval run and certain things. Not so much retrieval run, but to a little bit. There was ways to just grab what you needed when you needed it.
Right, and that's the problem is that what you're going for with those decks is the compression of your first click is running on my thing, and it bounces you out. Your second click is installing your breaker to get it. Your third click is running and hitting it, and then you hit my herrings. And so
Okay.
you ultimately, if you had it like you did, if your first click was anything other than that run, you couldn't do it. And then
Yeah.
with Clone Chip or Otman or self-modifying code, you could get that breaker and save yourself those clicks.
Yeah, I think all those things that allow you to, like I said, they've somewhat eliminated the gear check portion of ICE, which
Right.
I think which was a huge hit to the corporation.
And especially the World is Yours Rush. That was Gear Check was the name of the game. I had no ice more than over 3 strength in that deck, and so
I mean, Crypsis could answer prior to that. Crypsis could answer a gear check, but it was expensive to do so, and it was
right.
bulky.
And Red Herrings was a good enough Crypsis counter because of how much money it took Crypsis to run in. Just by invalidating that one run, Crypsis needs a token and like 3 creds to get past, let's say, my um, Enigma or whatever.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a very bulky icebreaker. It has a lot of baggage associated with it.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that with wraparound, and then I might try splashing swords in to bring it back because it's really fun to play that deck because you just win or lose by turn 10. You don't need to keep playing the game. But
Yeah,
it kind of got really hurt by Creation Control.
definitely. Trying to think of
Um,
what else do we have on the list of topics we've gone through?
Restructure. There's been a lot. Alex Frog made this big kind of post saying he thinks it's going to be a big game changer.
I think it's a fantastic card. I'm in my Haas Rush deck. I'm running two of them. It's not uncommon for that deck to get to 30 or 40 credits, which I mean, having that much money threatens everything. It's what am I going to do? Is this a Janus? Is this two Janus? Is it a Janus and a Wotan? And I like having a big stack of cash for that reason, and it really contributes to that.
It's
If you're playing the kind of deck where you float that much money,
mhm.
it's basically like having even if you have three more, then it's like having three more hedge funds plus a little better.
Yep. I definitely
Assuming you're floating the money to make it work.
I definitely think it's cool. I think my problem with it is it really forces you into operation economy, which isn't bad per
That's not
se.
such a bad thing. 'Cause the thing I found with this is that if you're sitting there floating upwards of 20 credits, things like Vamp and Siphon suddenly are a lot less relevant.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's true. Having if you have enough in any resource, losing a couple is not going to hurt you. Um, but if you're low on credits, Siphon can be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and ultimately it's just that turn at the beginning if you don't get Operation Economy where you have to just bankroll credits so you can fire restructuring. That's what kind of
That's why that's why I opted around the profiteerings. If I'm broke and I can manage to swing those last couple credits into a profiteering, I can kind of play it by ear how many bad publicity I want to take. It's not uncommon. Like for the first one, I'll take all three, go up to 15, then do restructure twice, and suddenly I'm sitting at 25. And like
yep.
that's all in the span of what, 1 or 2 turns.
I guess the reason that I worry about it, I definitely think I'd take it in any Wayland deck because Wayland already has so many incentives to run an Operation Economy
Mm-hmm.
just because of the way they're structured. But outside of Wayland, because here's the thing: when I'm playing Runner, and if I hit a R&D and I see a hedge fund, I start doing the craziest shit. I will just run on like I'll run into a neural katana with no killer, saying, "Hey, I don't care if I take this net damage. I'm just trying to get you to go so broke you can't fire your hedge fund."
Yeah, I got you. It's I can see that. The thing I love about Operation Economy is that it's the hardest for the runner to shut down. You can do that, yeah. I mean, it's you have to put him under the credit too, under the credit count.
Right, and the problem is like that's already kind of possible for hedge fund. It doesn't work forever, but I stall them long enough that it really. And then with restructuring, that's just such a bigger window for me to do those.
It's definitely. I mean, it's definitely it's a curve. I mean, you've got your beanstalk and your green level here, right, to get it moving. You've got your hedge fund, then you've got restructure up at the top, and you have to you really have to look at the financial curve of your deck to figure out if that's viable.
Hmm.
It's not for every deck, certainly. Like I said, but I think, like for example, the deck I'm running currently again, it floats large amounts of money all the time.
Yep.
So I'm okay with that. For me, it's just okay. Here's 5 free credits, 5 for 1. But you get the idea. If you're consistently going broke, then yeah, it's not going to work for you.
Yep. So I guess that's my. I think it's a cool card, and I definitely understand the logic where he says, even if it doesn't work in decks, you should change your decks so that restructuring does work in them.
I mean, Grendel's going to love it.
Oh yeah.
It is the card Grendel deserves and the card it needs right now, as it were. You can drop that turn 1,
Hmm.
and because listen, I think Grendel's going to really become a tag and bag identity because it's so able to ease. It's all about again. I'm a big fan of the Sea Scorch tag and bag style, and that's all about outrunning the runner financially.
Hmm.
So,
Um,
let's see. What else do we have on our deck here?
oh, one other thing I just want to point out here, and then I think I know what I want to talk about. But first, just a random little tidbit. So, Grendel, you actually kind of want to like wait on running almost because like you might just die turn 1 or whatever if they end up having the double scorch. No one doesn't know that. So what I think is going to be good with Grendel is aggressive negotiation because you just
Yeah.
put an agenda
Okay.
with the 3 counters and then you just wait a turn and you just leave it on the table. They're kind of like, well, if I run it, they might just see scorched me, and then it turns out you didn't even have see scorched. You just score that negotiation
I think
first quick.
that fear of getting sea scorched from Grendel turn 1 is something you're not going to see that happen too commonly until it starts to happen to a few people because it's so situational. It's the reverse equivalent of drawing a bad hand. The
Yeah.
other guy just got cards and used them to
No
fuck you.
duh. Yeah, but then if they just get a couple, like I guess not IOP because you can't get the tag down. If they run into it though, you could splash Invasion of Privacy just for an amazing Invasion of Privacy Scorched Earth kill.
Um, I think that Grendel Sea Source Tag and Bag deck needs Data Raven even more than any other deck because again, yeah, you've run turn 1, you hit a Data Raven, you go, okay, well, I take the tag, now I clear it. I'm kind of broke, but I got maybe an agenda. Well, now you have no money, and I'm going to Sea Source you. It's
Yep.
so you can kind of there's a little bit of a mis you can play a little bit of a misdirect with it. I would not be surprised to see some turn 1 or 2 tagging bags with Grendel.
Yeah. So another thing that was announced at Worlds was the Netrunner drafting.
This is a topic I have opinions about.
I mean, I definitely like drafting in games, but
As
because
do I. As
you
do I.
can't use the cards after an LCG.
I don't think it works okay in this format. They're clearly trying to do their best with it.
Hmm.
As far as the cards you get in the pack, I like. Some people don't like the fact that you get 3 Crypsis. I think that's Team Covenant's opinion,
Hmm.
and I disagree with that
I am with you.
because well, if you don't give maybe it should come with one, but if you don't give somebody at least one like AI breaker, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to draft all the barriers, and then I'm going to draft all the barrier breakers, and you're just going to deal with them.
Yeah, exactly. The three because Crypsis isn't that good. Like when people have memories of Crypsis doing good for them in their deck, it's because you built your deck with a Crypsis support system. That made it so it was okay that you weren't running aggressively. That you were running a control deck. You can't
I mean,
guarantee draft a control deck, so Crypsis
it's
isn't
not,
going to be great. It's just going to make it possible.
yeah, it's gonna be a matter of seeing how that shakes out. What kind of cards come in the packs? Um, I know people are already trying to work out the algorithm they use for building the packs so they can build their own. Which
Yeah.
I don't think there's any logic to it yet. Um, my problem with them though is they are too expensive. I am not paying. It's $15, right, for a pack.
I don't remember exactly.
I think the starter was 5,
Mhm.
and the packs each were each 15. So if I'm wrong on that, somebody can correct me. But that's what I was told. So I'm paying $15 for 40 cards that I already have copies of because they're not random when I buy them elsewhere.
Mhm.
Um, and if I want to play, if you want to play a full draft, you need to have a pack of each and a starter.
Yep.
So if I want to play like a draft like I would in Magic, I need to spend $35. And I mean, I haven't played Magic in a long time, but I don't remember it being that expensive.
I mean, the drafts, the thing is, they were about that expensive, but then the cards, you
The
can,
card
like, spawn
there
them
was
after.
yeah, there was a secondary market for the cards. You might get some. I
Oh,
mean, just like opening a box of Magic cards or a booster, you might get
this
something.
is, man,
Look at this guy. This is so
headphones
rude.
are,
I should do
yeah,
that.
mute your phone too, yeah.
Um, but still, I mean, yeah, there's a secondary market for the card, and if I like, I guess Team Covenant opened one and they got a Sand Sand out of it, which is neat because a Sand Sand is a one of. So if you only have 2 core sets, you still only don't have a 3 set.
Mhm.
But for $25, I can buy another core set.
Right, so, here's what I think, here's my ideal, this is what, because I do enjoy the act of drafting a lot. So
Yeah.
this is my platonic ideal for what happens with Netrunner drafting. Uh, the algorithm gets cracked, DB0 or someone puts it on Octagon so you can draft for free. Because I would play free drafts all the time. It would be so
Sure,
fun.
yeah. I'd even play them if they were cheaper. That price is just
Right.
too high for me.
Well, and then I think what the price would be fair and fine for is if I go to a tournament and I pay to do a draft tournament and then I've cut my teeth on these, dozens
I
and
would like
dozens of online drafts.
I would like to see I would like to see the draft format, and maybe they're planning this. I don't know, but I would pay that price for the draft format if the boxes contained cards that had not yet been released.
I think,
But at that point, I'm playing Magic.
yeah, I would actually be kind of against that just because then I would start.
That's the only way it would justify the cost for me. And yeah, there's a million other reasons why it's a bad idea.
Yeah, well, the reason the cost is that FFG is using this in-house printer now and not
Yeah,
using
they got to
China.
print them. I get that stuff costs money, but it just doesn't justify it for me at that price point.
See, for me, what it is I wouldn't do this like weekly at my fucking game store or anything. I would pay the price though to like I walk into a tournament or a con 2 or 3 times a year. I play Draft Netrunner.
Okay,
So
sure.
if it's free online and I can get good at Draft Online, I would like because they could do money tournaments too, and then maybe FFG can put some money into this because of the cost of these draft cards.
I would also need to see if something I was gonna try to get good at. I would need to know what the card space was for the draft packs.
Right, and so I think when we know the card space and the algorithm's cracked, I really hope we can get it online. Because I'd love to play it online, and then I'd be willing to pay that entrance every big event and try to show off that I've gotten good at, try to play a Netrunner draft. But
I mean, it is a different style of play, which
I don't want to pay that much for the practice, though, that's for sure.
yeah. I mean, what sort of stuff is coming out of the draft packs? All I've heard is that Sensen comes out of it. Are there agendas that come out
Mhm.
of them?
Actually, one of the cool things is that you get, like, priority Rex, I think, and then
Yeah,
otherwise, your your agendas, like, the corp identity can use any agenda.
yeah. I saw the identities can run anything, which I think is we ran a tournament like that where you could use any agendas, and it was one of the most crazy things I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, because in like constructed, it's fucking bonkers, but here when
It
you
was.
actually
I
need to
mean, we,
draft
we
it,
purposely we wanted to have a fucking bonkers tournament, and it was a
mhm.
lot of fun, but it was totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the absurdly degenerate combos we can get.
Yeah, there's gonna be that. I think every deck I saw when that was an option had 3 Project Atlas in it.
Yeah, imagine Atlas, Nisei, and Astro in one deck.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah. So
So pretty pumped for that. Um,
and then the other thing with that is that since the size of the decks is smaller and the fact you only play to 6 points is going to affect the game as well.
Yeah, it makes 3 ofs a little bit better now.
Yeah, that and for example, let's say you pull a beta test. The beta test is a little more. It can be a little more reliable depending on your distribution. This,
So
I mean, it comes with a different strategy based on having those smaller decks.
I'm really looking forward to drafting, but I think I'd only want to do it online except for tournaments. I wouldn't want to try to do like a weekly draft night.
Yeah, no,
Not even
I'd,
really a monthly draft night.
I'd put myself in the poorhouse doing it.
Exactly.
So I don't. I mean, I'm glad they're trying it. I don't know if it's going to work. I think it's a little expensive, but that's my opinion. That's more me looking. That's not me saying it's a bad price. That's me looking at my wallet and going, I don't know.
Yeah, no joke. I got any other topics you want to hit on?
I don't think so. Was there anything else? Let me look at the list here. I feel like I know we had some stuff worked out. Is there anything? What else has come out from? What else is in Second Thoughts? That was it. That was one of the ones that have been on my
I think
mind lately.
we've hit most of the big ones coming out in Second Thoughts. We didn't talk about a couple. There's Clone Retirement. That's
What?
just
That's
Jinteki
the
3-1.
one. That's the one they needed. What are your thoughts on Copycat?
Copycat. Let me go pull it up
That's
quick.
the one where when you pass a piece of ice, you can move to another server with the same ice. I think is what I think. I'm paraphrasing that badly, but
Yeah. I I don't know. Copycat just seems kind of stupid.
I think it's going to be another way. It's going to be almost a low budget sneak door or an alternative sneak door.
But it's like you need all this setup. I mean, the corp needs to place their ice not caring about Copycat. Then they need to res both. So this can't be done in the early game because both need to be resed. And it needs to be a beneficial swap. And then you need to have this card on it, and it only works once. Like, this just seems
Yeah,
like that's too
I
many
suppose
ifs.
that.
I guess I could see it in one of those like Professor Exile toolbox kind of decks where
Right.
you run a ton of one-offs and a
It's
lot of
very
search.
simple.
I would like having like this with clone chips and SMC, I guess, just because
Right.
they wouldn't see it coming really. But
There's a lot of value in that. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of doing things that are very rogue, very against the established meta.
mhm. About the only thing that I really like about oh, actually, let me look up a card quick before I run my mouth on this because I might be wrong. But
I think with some of these cards that are coming up, you're going to see a little bit of a return of notoriety because it's going to be a little bit. There's going to be more slipperiness, more tricks, more ways into
mhm.
servers without necessarily accessing something like or like through indexing, Escher, stuff like that.
Yeah, here's the thing with Escher. If you make a successful run on HQ, doesn't it need to end in HQ?
Sorry.
If you Does Escher need to end in HQ, or do you just need to
Let
make
me
a run on HQ, and if it's successful anywhere?
take a look.
I don't know. Its
Um,
wording is ambiguous. It just says make a run on HQ if successful, and so it depends whether it's saying if you
yeah,
run on HQ is successful
I
or if
see
you
what you're saying
run.
here now that I look at it, and I'm not
Because
sure.
canonically, you can't use like a big point of event runs is like you can't sticky tape them together, and you can't use things like to help them out. Like you can't sneak door an account siphon. But
Yeah,
this is the
that's
first one that like you use it in the run itself. The copycat.
work. Wording wise, my armchair lawyer senses here say that it would work,
Hmm.
just the way it's written, but it flies in the face of everything else they've in the
Hmm.
established
So if
mechanics.
it does work, that would be a really good use of copycat was for event runs. Like
Yeah,
if they've got a really scary piece of ice on like the front of their tower, and then a crappy one somewhere else, use that to Escher by hitting their pad campaign or something.
that might work very well. If that's the case, then if that's the intended purpose of copycat, then great.
Yeah, then it's if you got a lot of event runs and
It
SMC
also
and
that
clone.
also turns account siphon into a three of. I mean,
Yeah, this it definitely feels like shapers are gonna want to splash this more than criminals are gonna want to use it.
right.
Because I think that you need the clone chips and SMCs. I don't want to have like three doesn't have to like draw these and
It's only
play
a single
them.
input, so it's probably intended as a splash.
Because when you leave it on the table, like what do you do
Also,
with it?
yeah, just having one on the board can cause the corporation to have to rethink how he's placing things.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, corporate decks, even if they are very interactive, they're kind of running on autopilot. Players know if you see a piece of ice, you know where you want it. Anything that screws with the corporation's perceptions of how the game is playing and removes his level of control will help the runner.
So I like Jinteki getting into one, especially personal evolution.
They needed that. That is what they needed. I mean, it allows them to work in a bunch of other faction toys they may not have before.
Oh, I haven't
Uh,
complained about Leviathan yet.
it allows
That's
the, it allows them to it allows them to get even more mileage out of Trick of Light, which
mhm.
they were getting mileage out of it before, but now now instead of being a toy they manufactured for other factions, it's something they can run reliably.
Especially if the runner ends turn with one card in hand, you can use Clone Retirement, Trick of Light, Neural AMP as a kill shot.
Yeah, oh,
Maybe that matters
that's
someday.
it. I'm sure I'll be sitting playing a game and I'll remember that, and it'll either, depending on which side of the table I'm on, it'll screw me or it won't. It sounds like one of those things. I'll hear your
Yeah.
voice in the back of my head, like,
Yeah, Net Shield I think is actually going to start getting played now. It was so bad in core, and now it's finally,
yeah, yeah,
especially because you got Omni Drive, which Net Shield likes. They work well together.
true, true. Um, but yeah, I think you said the last thing was the Leviathan, which I don't know how I don't like it.
And here's the thing: Peacock is actually a pretty good decoder. People don't use it just because Yogg and Gordian are really good, but you're not actually super hard off if you have to use Peacock. Peacock is alright.
Well,
Chrome,
the numbers on Leviathan are so weird, which makes me think there's a piece of ice coming to go with it.
right, and I guess the thing is, like, you need some big, like, where does it, like, this peak of efficiency
I mean,
is if you've got
there aren't any advanceable code gates yet, are
an
there?
8 strength of the salvage. And it doesn't get strength even.
No, I mean,
Uh,
there are currently no advanceable code gates, right?
just
The
the
Wayland set up for
salvage,
those.
so there's no real advanceable code gates.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
none that
So
people play in decks.
that's what. Yeah, see, salvage didn't even register in my head.
It shouldn't.
There might be one coming. Who knows?
Because, like, so if you look at its peak point of efficiency, it's if there's an 8 strength, 3 sub code gate, it can break it for 6. But, like, how much does Peacock take for that same code gate? I forget the actual numbers, so I'm going to quick look up Peacock. So then it's got to get 6 to get the strength, and then, well, because the thing is you want A3 with Peacock. I forgot to point that out. But yeah, Peacock works really well with E3. So
Yeah,
I
that's true.
guess Leviathan is better than Peacock without E3, but then
Any
maybe.
any I don't know. Do you think Leviathan was built to deal with salvage, despite the fact that nobody uses salvage?
No, because there's been enough of a gap. If they were right next to each other in the packs, maybe. But
Maybe.
this is so far.
I don't know.
I don't know. Peacock is a pretty good card.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh yeah, Peacock's fantastic. I like. It's not Yogg is the problem, and
Hmm.
but really what is?
Yeah, it's not. It's a very good because criminals need worse icebreakers. That's kind of their shtick, and it's very reasonable for criminal. Like it's definitely a cut below Gordian and Yogg, but it's not so awful that like you always need to splash a decoder in criminal. Peacock's all right, and so I don't see Leviathan.
There must, which means, I mean, they don't design cards for no reason. Even salvage. I'm sure there's probably some purpose for it. Either that nobody's dug up, or that there's something coming. I mean, they design a set mid. They're working on the third cycle already. I'm sure in their headquarters somewhere.
Yep.
So there's got to be something worked on. They don't do things for no reason, as much as I'd like to think they do.
But right now, this just goes in the question mark category. That minimum, you have to spend 3C to break 3, no other options. Like,
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. It's probably waiting for something that doesn't exist.
hmm oh, and then Hellion Alpha Test we can quick touch on. That's the HB one where you can trace to put and install the resource at the top of the runner stack. The Giants play.
That's kind of the reverse of Record Reconstructor, but not quite. I mean, it's going to clog up a deck, and
Here's
if you can manage to, some of the popular resources right now are very mission critical,
mhm.
very inconvenient to put back, and very expensive to put down again. Professional contacts, Katie,
Yeah.
um, those are the big two I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty cool card. Because it just makes you
If
have to
I mean,
have money to put a resource. You can't go broke when you're putting it down.
that's the thing. If I make you shelf even a partially advanced Katie,
Mhm.
that's how that's time you wasted.
Right. That's basically, I think, what Hellion comes down to. Because the counterplay to it's pretty easy. Because the Corp doesn't really want to like spend so much that you can't stop that trace ever. But then there's a bad pub if you fail, so they kind of almost have to.
Yeah,
Whereas making news does really well with invasion of privacy. I mean, HB is 3 influence. It's mostly going to be HB running this. And so, like, the counterplay, the runner just has some money on hand. HB's not going to want to touch it. What really is cool is just that if you're at like 2 credits, what you want to do efficiency wise is go broke with Katie, use Katie for money, try to do free stuff as much as you can, fire Katie. Now you
Yeah.
need to do your inefficient economy actions before you can even play your efficient economy. Because if you just skip right to your efficient economy, it's going to get Hellion. So you
I
need to
think
waste your time
that'll,
doing
that'll,
bad economy.
I think that'll come down to a meta consideration as to whether or not people see a lot of Katie, which I do personally. I see it quite a bit, and whether or not people decide to play Hellion Alpha Test, because it's
Yep.
much like playing Foxfire. Hellion Alpha Test is so specifically useful.
Yep.
It's just, and if you're not in a situation where it helps you, you just wasted a card.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Hellion kind of 1-ofs and 2-ofs, and people aren't going to really be savvy. It's going to be like those Halcyon days when Grim came out and you just got to win a bunch of free games because it trashed stuff for free.
How many influences does Hellion Alpha Test?
3, that's the issue.
Three.
It's
See,
pretty much for HB.
I could see it as a Wayland Splash because you could Project Atlas for it, but it's too pricey for that.
Yeah, so it's a not a bad card. It's just kind of a specific card, and those are fine to have. It's just
That's the same. Yeah, Foxfire was the same way. Same with less so with Freelancer, but Freelancer is kind of in the same vein.
yeah, it's exactly. It's in that kind of that
Even
era.
closed accounts, it's a situational card that has a good purpose, but if the purpose doesn't come up, it's not any good to you.
Yep. I
So.
guess Recon. I think we.
Recon, I don't know how I feel about it. It seems weird to me. What's the point?
The big thing over Snitch is that they need to res it for Recon, and
That's
they
true.
don't for Snitch, and
That's
that's really fucking cool.
Yeah, I might try it and see how it works. I don't think I've seen it played enough to really form an educated opinion on it.
It's really good face checking because I wrote this big article like 6 months ago, or whatever, like getting mad at Snitch because ultimately the thing about Snitch is that since they don't pay for the ice, like a lot of times you just
Yeah.
run another killer instead of Snitch,
Right.
and you'll probably be fine. But the cool thing with Recon, they got a res, so it's really good early game because you just, especially if you have something that triggers off of a run on R&D or HQ or whatever,
Hmm.
like if you're trying to get a shutdown or something, you just Recon it because they got to spend that money and you get out. And
Right. Yeah. It definitely can function as a credit denial card.
yeah, and you can just run with a incomplete rig and kind of just test the waters, and they'll have to let you in or
Right.
spend and then not get the benefit. So it's an all right card. I got nothing against it. It's competing with a lot of really good criminal events. So I don't know how much
That
players
is
will
always
see.
the thing with criminal events.
But and it's not amazing, but it's definitely got that benefit over Snitch that it makes them res. That's a really big deal.
Right.
Of course, unlike Snitch, it's a one shot, but then it also doesn't take MU. So, and then there's the prepaid voice pad. I don't know. It's a
Eh.
really boring card to look at. Just either you'll have events and it'll be worthwhile money, or you won't, and
It,
it won't.
it has a home, but it's not. There's not what's to talk about.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
exists. It's decent. It's playable, and that's that.
Yep.
It's like this is good, but who gives a shit? It's, I have nothing. I have no complaints, but I'm not, also not
Yeah.
going to.
And then Elizabeth
Cancel.
Mills, I already kind of touched on it earlier, where I think Grendel makes, because of Elizabeth Mills, Grendel's bad pub is even not as bad as Takeover because
The
it's
thing,
not a 2 card combo. You just
I
need
think
Mills.
my favorite thing about Elizabeth Mills, as I pull up my analog cards here, as I said, you've got all the digital stuff, is if I can find it. Maybe I should go digital.
I have the physical cards. It's
Yeah, I'm
just
just
I
looking at
have
my
2
notes.
monitors.
That's
So
what I want. Mostly, I wanted to bring it up because I think my favorite part of that card is the art on it. I think it's got some of the most solid art because somebody pointed out to me, it's okay, this building has to go, this building has to go, and then we looked a little closer and went, wait a minute, those are people. So when I was running that director Haas deck, I also had Jackson Howard. I wanted to find a way to put Elizabeth Mills in it just so I could have all the executives, but that was more of a thematic pipe dream.
yep. Well, I think we pretty much hit everything we wanted to go.
Yeah, definitely. I was hoping that Octagon would be updated. The other thing I would have suggested would be to play a game, but all my stuff uses second thoughts cards right now because they're just so good.
Yep. We'll have to do it some other time, and it's good talking to you. I'll have to.
Definitely, yeah. I think I'm sure. We've been going on quite a bit now.
Yeah, we'll have to catch you again when there's some more Netrunner news going on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure now that Worlds is done, it'll be people will be more focused
Yeah,
on
I
the new
think we're
card.
gonna get a huge phase of creativity now. now
Certainly,
that
yeah.
Worlds is over.
People are willing to try things, and I had
So
the same problem with plugged in tour. I wanted to bring. I brought that next design deck, and it didn't work that well because I got some bad draws. But it was so weird and experimental that I almost just brought my Wayland deck.
mhm.
Nobody's willing to bring anything experimental to a serious business tournament.
so hopefully we'll get some cool new things to talk about and to do another episode soon.
Definitely. So we'll go from there.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Have a good one.